The apartment door, forced open with a brutal efficiency, stood ajar, a silent invitation to a scene that defied comprehension. Inside, the air hung heavy, thick with the metallic scent of blood and the dull, stagnant odor of a life abruptly extinguished. The living room, once a space of personal comfort, now resembled a macabre tableau. Furniture lay overturned, a lamp shattered, its shards reflecting the harsh, overhead light. A single overturned framed photograph lay face down, the glass cracked. The body lay in the bedroom, sprawled across the disheveled sheets. Detective Sarah Jones, a woman known for her sharp mind and unwavering resolve, was gone. The scene spoke of violence, of a sudden, ferocious attack. Her position suggested a struggle, a desperate attempt to defend herself. The stillness in the room was absolute, broken only by the faint whir of the refrigerator in the adjacent kitchen. A dark stain spread across the bedsheets, a stark testament to the brutality of the act. The focus, however, extended beyond the single tragic loss. Sarah was pregnant. The subtle curve of her abdomen, now exposed, revealed the dual nature of this tragedy. 2 lives, 2 futures, extinguished in a single violent moment. The sense of violation was profound, a raw, visceral intrusion into the sanctuary of her home, into the very essence of her being. The room, once a space of personal safety, was now a monument to its destruction. The silence was broken only by the arrival of the first responders, their footsteps heavy on the floorboards. The paramedics, their faces grim, confirmed what was already painfully obvious. Life had departed. The forensic team, their movements methodical, began their grim work, documenting every detail, every mark, every disturbance. The camera flashed, capturing the scene for posterity, a record of the horror that had unfolded. The air was thick with unspoken questions, with the weight of unanswered grief. The apartment, a small, 2-bedroom unit in a quiet building, offered no immediate clues. There were no signs of forced entry beyond the initial door, suggesting the perpetrator either had a key or was known to Sarah. The scene was chaotic, but not random. There was a sense of purpose, a focused violence that hinted at something more than a simple act of rage. The details were disturbing, a puzzle laid out in the language of violence. The lack of obvious signs of robbery added another layer of complexity to the scene. The personal nature of the violence was hard to ignore. Detective Mark Harris arrived at the scene with the practiced calm of a seasoned investigator. His eyes, though, betrayed the weariness of countless hours spent confronting the darker side of human nature. The sight of Sarah's body, a fellow officer, a friend, struck a chord deep within him. The raw brutality of the scene, the palpable sense of violation, stirred a familiar anger, a fierce determination to bring the perpetrator to justice. Harris was a man of contradictions, a hardened detective with a deep-seated empathy for the victims he served. He had seen it all, the worst that humanity could offer, yet he clung to a stubborn belief in justice, in the possibility of order amidst the chaos. This case, though, was different. It was personal. Sarah was not just another victim. She was a colleague, someone he had shared meals with, someone he had trusted. As he surveyed the scene, his eyes were drawn to a small detail, a mark on the wall near the bed. It was a symbol, crudely drawn in what appeared to be blood. It was not a familiar gang sign, not something he recognized from any of his previous cases. It was unique, unsettling, a mark of the killer's presence, a silent taunt. Harris felt a shiver run down his spine. This was not just a murder. It was a message. But what did it mean? Who would want Sarah dead? And why leave such a cryptic clue? The questions swirled in his mind, fueling his determination. He would find the answers no matter the cost. This was not just a case. It was a promise. Ben, an inmate at the state correctional facility, was the immediate focus of the investigation. His relationship with Sarah was a closely guarded secret, a dangerous liaison that had raised eyebrows within the department. Their connection was complex, a blend of attraction and manipulation, a dance on the edge of professional boundaries. Initial reports painted a picture of a troubled man, a convicted felon with a history of violence. He was serving time for aggravated assault, a crime that spoke to a volatile temper and a capacity for brutality. The fact that Sarah, a respected detective, would become involved with such a man was a puzzle in itself. The police had already placed Ben on high alert, with constant monitoring. His access to outside communication was restricted, but the nature of their relationship hinted at the possibility of illicit contact. The investigators considered the possibility that he had arranged the crime from within the prison walls. Information gathered from Sarah's colleagues revealed a growing concern for her well-being. They had noticed a change in her demeanor, a guardedness that was uncharacteristic. Speculation arose that Ben had a hold over her, that their relationship was far from equal. The nature of their connection was a prime focus of the investigation. The scene was set. A detective, pregnant, murdered in her own home. A strange symbol left at the scene. A convicted felon as the prime suspect. The questions multiplied, each one leading to another. What drove someone to commit such a violent act? Was it a crime of passion, a desperate act of rage? Or was it something more complex, a carefully planned execution with a hidden motive? The symbol, a silent witness, whispered of a deeper meaning, a connection to something beyond the surface. Could Ben, confined within the walls of a prison, have somehow reached out and orchestrated this crime? Could he have manipulated Sarah, used her trust against her? Or was he a convenient scapegoat, a red herring in a more intricate game? The investigation had only just begun, and the answers were buried deep within the layers of secrets and lies. Leave a comment below with your initial theories. Who do you think is responsible? What do you think the symbol means? Have you ever had a feeling that someone close to you was living a double life? A secret existence hidden beneath a veneer of normalcy? Before she was Detective Sarah Jones, respected within the precinct, she was Ava, a shadow infiltrating the heart of Ben's criminal enterprise. The operation was a high-stakes gamble, a dangerous dance with individuals who operated beyond the constraints of law and morality. Sarah, or Ava, had completely immersed herself in their world, mastering their language, their mannerisms, their very essence, becoming a believable member of their ranks. The risks were immense, each day a tightrope walk over an abyss. Each interaction was a delicate balance between maintaining her carefully constructed cover and preserving her own sense of self. The emotional toll was a constant, crushing pressure that threatened to break her. She witnessed acts of violence that seared themselves into her memory, heard whispers of darker deeds that chilled her to the bone, and navigated a world where trust was a commodity as rare as it was dangerous. Her relationship with Ben was a complex web of deception and, disturbingly, a genuine connection. He possessed a charismatic charm, a dangerous allure that drew people in, and a vulnerability that, against her better judgment, Sarah found herself drawn to. Their interactions were charged, a constant interplay of power and vulnerability, a dangerous dance that blurred the lines between her role and her reality. She had to maintain a facade of loyalty and affection, while knowing that every word, every touch, was a lie. The operation began to unravel when a rival gang, sensing weakness, made a bold move on Ben's territory. A violent confrontation erupted, a chaotic clash of loyalties and betrayals. Sarah found herself caught in the crossfire, forced to make split-second decisions that compromised her carefully constructed cover. She acted to save another undercover, exposing herself in the process. The trust she had painstakingly built was shattered, the illusion of Ava destroyed. Ben, feeling deeply betrayed, his world turned upside down, was apprehended. The operation, once deemed a success, went sideways, leaving behind a wreckage of broken trust and shattered lives. Sarah had to watch as a man she had grown close to, in a twisted way, was taken away. The emotional fallout was immense. The arrest of Ben was swift and decisive, a stark contrast to the months of painstaking undercover work. Sarah, now back to her identity as Detective Jones, watched from the sidelines as the man she had known as Ben, the man she had shared moments of genuine connection with, was led away in handcuffs. The weight of her betrayal settled upon her, a heavy burden of guilt and emotional conflict. She had played her part, she had done her job, but the cost was higher than she had anticipated. The aftermath of the operation was a tangled web of emotions. Sarah retreated to her life as a detective, seeking the familiar structure and routine of police work. She threw herself into her cases, seeking a distraction from the turmoil within. However, the memories of her time as Ava, the faces of the people she had deceived, haunted her. The knowledge that she had betrayed the man she had, in a twisted way, come to care for, gnawed at her conscience. The transition was far from seamless. She found herself questioning her own motivations, her own sense of morality. Had she crossed a line? Had she become too deeply immersed in the world she was meant to infiltrate? The lines between her role and her reality had blurred, leaving her with a sense of unease. Then came another shock. A visit to the doctor confirmed her suspicions. She was pregnant. The news hit her like a physical blow, a sudden, unexpected complication to an already complex situation. The child was Ben's, a living reminder of her time undercover, a tangible consequence of her deception. The knowledge that she was carrying his child deepened her sense of guilt and isolation. She wrestled with the implications, the ethical dilemmas, the sheer impossibility of her situation. How could she reconcile her role as a detective with her role as a mother, especially when the father was a convicted felon? The situation was a personal crisis, one she felt she could not share with anyone. The weight of her secret, and the knowledge of her pregnancy, threatened to consume her. The arrest of Ben did not mark the end of Sarah's ordeal. It was, in fact, the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by fear and isolation. Ben's former associates, a network of individuals bound by loyalty and a shared code of silence, suspected her betrayal. They had seen her too close to Ben, too involved in their operations, and their suspicion was a death sentence. Whispers began to circulate, rumors of a rat within their ranks, a traitor who had infiltrated their inner circle. Sarah knew that she was the target of their suspicion, that her life was in constant danger. The threats were subtle, veiled warnings delivered through intermediaries, messages left on her voicemail, a shadow following her on her way home. They were enough to instill a constant sense of dread, a feeling that she was being watched, hunted. She lived in a state of perpetual vigilance, her senses heightened, her instincts on high alert. Every sound, every movement, every unfamiliar face was a potential threat. She changed her routines, varied her routes to work, and avoided places she frequented. She installed security cameras in her apartment, double-locked her doors, and slept with a gun under her pillow. The fear was a constant companion, a heavy weight that pressed down on her, isolating her from the world. The knowledge of her pregnancy compounded her fear. She was not just protecting herself. She was protecting her unborn child. She knew that if Ben's associates discovered her secret, they would not hesitate to use it against her. The thought of her child being harmed, of her being unable to protect them, was unbearable. She became even more withdrawn, isolating herself from her colleagues, her friends, anyone who might inadvertently expose her secret. She attempted to hide her pregnancy, wearing loose-fitting clothing, avoiding social gatherings, and making excuses for her absence. She became a master of deception, a skill honed during her time undercover, now used to protect herself and her child. She knew that her secret could not remain hidden forever, that the truth would eventually come to light. But she clung to the hope that she could keep it hidden long enough to protect her child. The isolation was crushing. She could not confide in anyone, not even her closest colleagues. She was trapped in a web of her own making, a prisoner of her own secrets. The weight of her guilt, her fear, and her isolation was a heavy burden, one that threatened to break her. She was a detective trained to solve crimes, but she was also a woman, a mother, and a target. She was caught between two worlds, between her duty and her survival, and she was running out of time. The pressure mounted, creating a tense atmosphere around her. Fellow officers noticed a change, but attributed it to work stress or the emotional toll of recent cases. They didn't know the true depth of her fear. She was alone, completely and utterly alone. Detective Mark Harris, determined to understand the significance of the symbol found at Sarah's crime scene, began his investigation. He photographed the symbol, making detailed notes of its shape and any unique characteristics. He shared the image with other detectives in the precinct, hoping someone might recognize it, but no one had seen anything like it before. He turned to online resources, searching for symbols databases and forums dedicated to cryptography and symbology. Hours of searching yielded nothing. The symbol remained an enigma, a silent clue that offered no answers. The lack of information only deepened Harris's suspicion that it was something personal, a message meant only for Sarah. Alongside his search for the symbol's meaning, Harris began to delve into Sarah's past. He reviewed her personnel file, looking for any inconsistencies or unusual activity. He spoke with her colleagues, asking about her recent behavior, her relationships, any changes they had noticed. He wanted to understand the woman behind the detective, to uncover any secrets she might have kept. He paid close attention to her time before she became a detective. He knew that she had been assigned to a long-term undercover operation. He pulled the files and began to review them, starting to see the connection to Ben. He began to suspect that her double life as Ava might be the key to understanding her murder. He knew that the answers were hidden in her past, and he was determined to find them. Detective Mark Harris, driven by a relentless pursuit of truth, delved deeper into Sarah's life. He started with the basics, re-interviewing her colleagues, seeking to understand the subtle shifts in her behavior that might have gone unnoticed. He sensed a guardedness in their responses, a hesitation that spoke of unspoken truths. He pressed them, gently but firmly, seeking to peel back the layers of polite professionalism. His discovery of Sarah's double life as Ava was a revelation, a seismic shift in his understanding of the case. The undercover operation, the relationship with Ben, the potential for betrayal, it all painted a picture far more complex than a simple crime of passion. He felt the weight of the secrets she had carried, the burden of a double life lived in constant fear. As he pieced together the fragments of Sarah's past, Harris developed a growing suspicion that something was amiss. The official narrative, the simple explanation of a jealous lover, felt incomplete, a convenient cover for something darker. He sensed a presence, a feeling that he was being watched, that his investigation was being monitored. He noticed subtle signs, a car parked across the street, a figure lingering in the shadows, a sense of unease that settled upon him like a shroud. The feeling was unnerving, a constant reminder that he was treading on dangerous ground. He knew that he was getting close to the truth, and that someone somewhere was determined to stop him. He was becoming increasingly isolated, trusting fewer and fewer people. He was determined to find the truth, even if it meant risking everything. As Harris's investigation progressed, he stumbled upon a disturbing truth. The undercover operation that Sarah had been involved in was not as straightforward as it seemed. There were whispers of corruption, of officials who had used the operation for their own gain, who had profited from the chaos and violence. These individuals, powerful and influential, had a vested interest in burying the truth, in silencing anyone who threatened to expose their secrets. Harris began to see their fingerprints everywhere, in the obstruction of his investigation, in the missing files, in the subtle threats and warnings he received. They were a shadowy presence, pulling strings from behind the scenes, protecting their own interests at any cost. They were the ones who had ordered the surveillance on Sarah, who had monitored her every move, who had known her secrets. He discovered the surveillance logs, hidden deep within the department's archives. They were a chilling record of Sarah's life, a detailed account of her movements, her conversations, her fears. They were the work of professionals, meticulous and thorough, leaving no room for doubt. Sarah had been under constant observation, her every move scrutinized, her every secret exposed. The realization sent a shiver down Harris's spine. He was not just dealing with a murder, he was dealing with a conspiracy, a web of corruption that reached the highest levels of the department. He knew that he was in over his head, that he was up against powerful forces that would stop at nothing to protect themselves. But he was not deterred. He had a duty to Sarah, to the truth, and he would not back down. The investigation unfolded like a tangled web, each thread leading to another, revealing a complex tapestry of secrets and lies. Sarah's life, once seemingly straightforward, was now a labyrinth of hidden connections and dangerous alliances. The deeper Harris delved, the more he realized that he was dealing with something far more sinister than he had initially imagined. He discovered that Sarah's secret, her relationship with Ben and her subsequent pregnancy, had been discovered by someone within the department. This information, a powerful weapon in the wrong hands, had been used against her, leading to her murder. The killer, he realized, was not just a jealous lover or a disgruntled associate. It was someone who knew her secrets, someone who had access to the surveillance logs, someone who had the power to silence her. The investigation was putting Harris in grave danger. He was treading on dangerous ground, uncovering secrets that powerful people wanted to remain hidden. He knew that he was being watched, that his every move was being monitored. He was a threat to the conspiracy, and they would not hesitate to eliminate him. But Harris was not a man to be intimidated. He had a duty to Sarah, to the truth, and he would not be deterred. He would continue to dig, to unravel the web of secrets, even if it meant risking his own life. He knew that the truth was out there, waiting to be discovered, and he would not rest until he found it. Do you believe that secrets always come to light? Or can some secrets remain hidden forever, buried beneath layers of deception? Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think the symbol means? Could it be a clue to the killer's identity, a personal mark, or something more sinister, a sign of a wider, hidden network? Harris, while reviewing the surveillance logs, noticed a pattern. Several times, a specific unmarked vehicle was seen following Sarah. He cross-referenced the license plate with departmental records and found it registered to a shell corporation, a front for a group of corrupt officials within the very department he worked. The corporation, he discovered, was linked to several illegal operations that Sarah's undercover work had inadvertently exposed. This discovery solidified his suspicion. Sarah's murder was not a crime of passion, but a calculated execution, a desperate attempt to silence her before she could expose the truth. This revelation was a turning point, a clear indication that the conspiracy reached deep within the police force, and that he himself was now in their crosshairs. The confrontation took place in a dimly lit interrogation room, the air thick with tension. Harris sat opposite the killer, Captain Richard Nolan, his eyes locked on theirs, his voice steady and unwavering. He laid out the evidence, piece by piece, weaving a tapestry of deceit and betrayal. The killer, initially defiant, gradually crumbled under the weight of his accusations. The truth emerged, a twisted tale of revenge and desperation. The killer, a high-ranking official within the department, had been Sarah's lover. He had used her, manipulated her, and ultimately betrayed her. When he discovered her pregnancy, he saw it as a threat, a liability that could expose his secrets and ruin his career. He had killed her to protect himself, to silence her forever. The symbol, Harris revealed, was a mark of their twisted relationship, a symbol of their shared secret. It was a mark of possession, a sign of the killer's control over Sarah. It was a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface, the evil that could hide in plain sight. The revelation left Harris reeling. He had known Sarah, trusted her, and yet he had failed to see the danger she was in. He had been blinded by his own assumptions, by his own biases. He had allowed himself to be manipulated, to be led astray. The guilt was a heavy burden, a constant reminder of his own failings. You're right. I apologize for that oversight. It's important to be specific, especially at this point in the narrative. I'll add the killer's name now. How about we name him Captain Richard Nolan? I'll incorporate that into the previous part, and then we can move on to the final section. The arrest of Captain Richard Nolan sent shockwaves through the department. The revelation of his crimes, his betrayal of trust, and his involvement in the conspiracy shook the foundations of the institution. The corrupt officials, their network exposed, were brought to justice. Their reign of power, built on lies and deceit, crumbled before the weight of truth. Sarah's death, a senseless tragedy, had a profound impact on her colleagues and loved ones. Her memory became a symbol of courage and sacrifice, a reminder of the cost of truth and justice. The department, once a place of shadows and secrets, began to heal, to rebuild trust and integrity. The final moments of the investigation were bittersweet. Harris, standing over Sarah's grave, felt a sense of closure, a sense of justice served. But he also felt the weight of loss, the pain of a life cut short. He had brought Nolan to justice, but he could not bring Sarah back. The case was closed, but the scars remained. The investigation had exposed the dark underbelly of the department, the corruption that had festered beneath the surface. It had revealed the fragility of trust, the ease with which power could be abused. But it had also shown the resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering pursuit of truth and justice. In a world where shadows cling to corners and whispers carry secrets, can justice ever truly prevail? What is the price of truth, and who is willing to pay it? Detective Sarah Jones paid the ultimate price, her life a sacrifice on the altar of justice. Her story is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure, that the pursuit of truth can prevail. Thank you for joining us on this journey, for delving into the depths of this case alongside Detective Harris. If you were captivated by this tale of secrets, betrayal, and the unwavering pursuit of justice, please like, subscribe, and share this video. We appreciate your support and your engagement. What other cases would you like us to explore? Are there mysteries that linger in your mind, stories that deserve to be told? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll embark on a new journey together, seeking truth and justice wherever they may lead.